What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla stock, why Tesla is selling off very aggressively, and also why it's not the end of the world whatsoever. I'm going to break down what's going on with other factors involving the markets as we have CPI coming out for tomorrow, another testimony by Jerome Powell, and possible announcements coming out by Donald Trump that could affect the way the market's going to be moving. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon at the end of March, so please check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's talk about the market. So looking at Tesla, we're looking very bearish. I gave you guys a warning about the dump that was coming, and as you guys could tell, this thing just continued to fall. The daily of Tesla is looking bearish as we have a gap to fill down here at 322, which I think Tesla will be visiting very soon. If that fails us, we have this support right here around the 310 area, followed by 299-ish at the 200 EMA. And if we lose the 299 support, there could be a big dump for Tesla because we have this giant gap to fill all the way down to 250. So I'll be talking about all these different levels for Tesla in just a minute. I first want to talk about the news. Why is Tesla selling off like this? But there's many factors involved in why this is happening. The first factor is this. In California, that's the biggest EV market in the United States right now. Tesla sales are down 11.6% for the month of January. In Germany, right, that's one of Europe's biggest EV markets. If anything, the sales are down about 60% for Tesla for the month of January. In France, the sales are down 63%, and the UK, the sales are actually down 8%. And then in China, their sales are down 11.5%. All over the world, Tesla sales are down. Why is this happening? The media is oftentimes attacking Elon Musk for it. They're saying that his politics is the main reason why. He's very political. He says very, very contentious things and this and that. I believe there is some truth behind this. I am willing to admit that because, once again, a lot of people may not like the things he says, but you can't basically throw everything at him. You can't just blame everything on Elon Musk because he has helped their sales improve so much. And you must remember that it's very early into the year. 1 month of a sales decline does not mean Tesla is dead. It's not even close to the end of the year. We have so much time left. Another factor is the fact that these different investors, different buyers, different people who want to buy these Tesla cars are likely going to be waiting for the Model Y refresh. Once that comes out, I think Tesla should be trying to make a nice comeback. They have lots of pre-orders in China. It is confirmed that there's over 70,000 pre-orders, and other sources suggest the possibility of 170,000 pre-orders for the Model Y refresh, but it's not guaranteed yet. I didn't see too many sources that confirmed it, though. I did see some sources that say that, but we need more credible sources that say that for more confirmation. But nonetheless, bad news for Tesla so far with all this politics talk, with all this talk about their sales decline. There's a lot of fear because of that. And then BYD, which is very ironic, they did really, really, really well with their sales, at least according to reports. So they're comparing BYD to Tesla, right? And that makes no sense in my view. Tesla's a completely different company, and it's better to compare Tesla to its own sales instead of BYD. So Tesla sold 63,000 vehicles in China for the month of January. If anything, that's a decline by over 11.5%. BYD, on the other hand, sold over 300,000 of their hybrids and EVs. That's a 49% increase and a nice increase year over year for them. So they're doing well, whereas Tesla's not doing as well for now. But don't forget, they're completely different companies. They have different factors, and Tesla is still waiting for the Model Y refresh. So I don't really like to compare them, especially because BYD is more local. It's local for China. Tesla is very different, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to compare them like that, in my personal opinion. So hopefully Tesla makes a strong comeback. 1 month is not enough time. There's still 11 months for the year, and Tesla's going to be fine as time goes on, at least in my opinion. For the short term, though, there is still some pain because of this. There's also this news right over here about how BYD has announced that it's going to be releasing its D-Pilot. I might be saying that wrong. It's like D-Pilot, D-Pilot, however you say it. I don't really speak Mandarin, so the pronunciation could be a little bit different. But anyways, it has a driving assist feature that's going to cost about $9,555, or at least it's going to be included in their low-cost vehicles. And putting it together, okay, it doesn't cost that much. That's just it's going to be included in a vehicle that costs that much. I want to clarify that. Sorry about that, guys. But besides that, this is an AI feature. This has not been approved yet. It's still waiting for approval. Same thing with Tesla. And if anything, this advanced version could be their own version of FSD. That could be very competitive with Tesla as well. So that news has come out. It's not the best of news for Tesla. And that's why we saw a lot of Chinese EVs sell off and Tesla followed the trend. But all this bad news about their sales and politics and all these other things is what's continuing to drive the share price down. Now, for now, Tesla looks bearish on the 4-hour, the daily, and the weeklies. They all look bearish for Tesla for now. And there is going to be a good chance of this declining even more to the lower 300s now. We're losing support after support. We lost 360. That was the main level, and we're just continuing to fall. So it's a free fall. We do like to push in the mornings before we decline, and that's going to likely continue for now. So I think that if we do get a retest of the low 330s tomorrow morning, we could just continue to decline to fill that gap at 322 that eventually hit 310. So I anticipate more downside. However, just know this. I'm not scared. I'm not worried whatsoever. Let them dump Tesla all the way down to the low 300s. Let them dump it to 250 if you want. I'm okay with that because I know that Tesla has so much potential. This thing went from 200 flat to about 500 in just a couple of months. Okay, there's so much money on the sidelines that could pump the share price. And as their sales improve, which I believe they will eventually, and as we start to see them develop FSD once they release the unsupervised FSD in June, and they start building more revenue with the robotaxi service, Tesla is going to be fine. The next couple of years are very bright for the company, as we talked about during their earnings call, and I'm not really worried whatsoever. Tesla is setting itself up for big growth, and I think that the growth that's coming is going to be attracting a lot of investors, so I'm not worried. Could it dip more? Yes, the short term is bearish. We've broken below this bearish wedge, but the long term remains very, very strong and very, very bullish. So I just, once again, see this as an opportunity. People were wishing they were buying Tesla in the 200s when this thing was at 480 a share. People wished they could buy the dip on Tesla. The dip is coming. It's here. This is your opportunity, guys. It's plain and simple, right? I've been buying the dips on Tesla since this thing was in the 100s. Those were the buying opportunities. We're getting another one. We should be excited for this, not scared. When others are fearful, that's when you have to be greedy. Please remember those very, very wise words. Okay? So I'm just trying to put it out there. Even when I make videos about how Tesla could dip, I'm not being fearful. I'm just telling you the truth that yes, the share price could be dipping more. It's an opportunity, plain and simple. I don't think I really have to talk too much about why Tesla's bullish for the long term. They have optimists. Their development as energy storage is growing. Their car sales, which will improve over time, which I still believe they will once the refresh comes out. And then you can't forget about other catalysts such as the robotaxi, and the list goes on. Excuse me. So they're going to be fine for the long term. Short term bearish, yes, could be dipping more. We might retest the 330s in the morning before it starts dipping again to 322 or below, then eventually the low 300s. But it's going to be fine as time goes on. Now, what about the whole market? The rest of the market was still decent. We saw SPY in the green and QQQ in the red. We saw Nvda in the red, Aapl in the green, very mixed and very flat price action. Let's talk about what happened today, then I'll talk about the catalyst for tomorrow. Today, Jerome Powell had to testify in front of the U.S. Senate. He gave his speech, the same speech he typically gives about how the Fed is making progress and blah, 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 right? The market was just flat when he was speaking, didn't really say much. Then John Kennedy questioned him, and he started asking him about the soft landing narrative and things like that, which Jerome Powell agreed with, and he said that, yes, he said that right now we're on track for a soft landing. He said that there's no recession right now. The market is not in a recession. And this caused the market to pump. After that, Jerome Powell refused to comment on tariffs. He did not want to talk about politics, and he remained very, very subtle. So just keep that in mind. He was very, very careful with his words. He didn't say anything too crazy, and the same thing may happen for tomorrow when he speaks in front of the House. And I'll talk more about that in just a minute. So that's just a little recap of what happened today. He didn't really say much. So we have 3 catalysts for the market for tomorrow. Number 1 is CPI, okay? CPI, don't forget it comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 hour before the stock market opens. Core CPI month-over-month is expected to be around 0.3%, a slight increase by 0.1% compared to the last time it came out. For core CPI year over year, we're expecting 3.1%, a slight decrease by 0.1%. For all items CPI month over month, we're expecting 0.2 to 0.3%, a slight teeny tiny decrease. And then for all items CPI, we're expecting 2.9%, the same as before. So basically, we're expecting CPI to be very similar to before. Looking at the trend, there's been a slight decrease in all items without food and energy or core CPI, but all items CPI has been on an uptrend, which is not the best for the Fed. So overall, we'll be watching to see if this trend continues. We're expecting the month-over-month data to be decent, but then the year-over-year data is not looking that great. I do want to mention that for crude prices, if you look at crude oil futures, the price of oil did go up just a little bit in January. So this could signify that CPI will most likely be the same. We'll see what that leads to, at least for the markets. So please be very open-minded and be ready for what's about to come. So CPI is going to cause either a pump or dump in the markets. Depends on the numbers. The data I have suggests it's going to be very similar to before, not really much of a change. We'll see just to be safe. That's the first catalyst. Number two, we have Jerome Powell giving his testimony. Like I said before, he's going to be speaking in front of the House of Representatives. He's most likely not going to say much and remain very, very ambiguous because he doesn't want to rattle things too much. He's very careful right now. So please keep that in mind. Might not really cost anything too significant. But so far as he has spoken, the market was a little bit more bullish than bearish. So he has actually helped the market a bit more. Lastly, there's one more catalyst that's going to be Donald Trump, as he's going to make some big announcements. So the White House has announced 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. The US's top steel importers are Canada, Mexico, and Brazil. So please keep that in mind. Besides that, Donald Trump said on Monday that he's going to be announcing reciprocal tariffs likely on Tuesday or Wednesday. Today's Tuesday. Donald Trump has not made the announcement, so there's a possibility tomorrow he announces more tariffs on different countries. He mentioned that he wants to do this on countries that have placed tariffs on U.S. goods. He said, and I quote, if they're charging us 130% and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way for long. So that's what Donald Trump said. So with Trump, please keep in mind that he can be making this announcement at any given moment. I don't know exactly when he's going to make the announcement with more tariffs, which countries will be involved and to what extent, but that could rattle the markets once he makes the announcement. So get ready for that just to be safe. If the market makes a big move out of nowhere, if it dumps or if it pumps, it might be because Trump is about to announce something or he's already announcing something. Please remember that and please be very, very careful. For earnings, we just have CVS tomorrow and Reddit. Today, we got Shopify and Coke. I went over these in the morning. And then after market close, we got Supermicro and Upstart. So Supermicro did relatively well looking at their earnings. We saw them see a very, very good amount of growth. They ended the fiscal quarter with 58 to 60 cents a share compared to expectations a little bit below that. And then the revenue is at 5.6 to 5.7 billion. That's slightly below expectations. Despite that, we had some very, very bullish news. Their guidance for the current quarter was a little weak, between $5 to $6 billion. But for the year, they're saying that revenue should range between 23.5 to 25 billion, paving a way for $40 billion for 2026 for the fiscal year. That is very, very good because Wall Street's expecting $29 billion for the fiscal 2026. Instead, they're telling us it's going to be $40 billion. So that's well above expectations. That's why Supermicro saw an explosion in the share price. Last but not least, we have UPST or Upstart. Good earnings. They beat on EPS and revenue. Their guidance was above expectations. The share price is soaring. So with that being said, that's it for earnings and everything. Now I'm just going to focus on the charts and nothing else. But please keep in mind, we have the big catalyst, which is going to be CPI in the morning. And I can't really predict the CPI numbers perfectly all the time. So that's why it's going to be kind of like an unknown catalyst. So you have to be very open-minded just to be safe. So if CPI causes a big bounce in the markets, it's possible Tesla retests the low 230s. But even if Tesla does that, there's still a risk of it dipping closer to about that gap fill for 322, then eventually to the low 300s where the 200 EMA happens to be. So a small pump could still be followed by a big dump on Tesla. It is still looking bearish despite that. And there's a lot of fear right now involving Elon Musk, involving politics, involving their sales declining, involving BYD in the competition. Lots of bad news is coming out for Tesla, so please keep that in mind. Even CPI may not affect this as much. And if Donald Trump does come out tomorrow and he announces more tariffs, that could also cause the whole market to slow down. At least that may be the initial temporary reaction. And that could cause Tesla to dip as well, so keep that in mind. For SPY, going to the 4-hour time frame, we're technically fighting this resistance up here. If we're bullish after CPI, you want to see us break past this 606-ish area to push for 608 to 610. If we break 610, we're looking for new all-time highs for 616. If we're bearish and we end up getting a rejection here, we're looking for essentially 602. If that fails us, there's 600, then 595 that's coming. It could go either way. We are favoring upside a little bit more, but we'll see just to be safe. And then on top of this, Whether we get a big pump or not, it also depends on Trump. So even if we do pump like this close to the 608 to 610, keep in mind that every time we hit 608 to 610, historically SPY is rejected. And if Trump announces those tariffs, the market could dip back down to fill this gap. Why? Because tariffs are negative for the economy for the short term. I'm being very, very blunt about that. And then that's going to cause a little bit of a disruption and a dip in the market to start things off. But nonetheless, just to be very blunt, we do favor upside right now as we're making higher lows on SPY. It looks like it wants to be pushing for 608 to 610, but I can't promise that as it depends on CPI. On the QQQ, we have an adjustment on the chart. We're making higher lows. We're in a channel right now. If we end up losing 524, we're looking for a dump back down towards 518. So just hypothetically, if we lose the support here, we're looking for 518. If we're bullish and we continue to ride this channel up like the way we've been, right, this is going to remain bullish. We could be pushing for essentially the 530s. That's like the more bullish case. So like, for example, right here, if we get a bounce from this support here, we could be pushing for 530 and 533. In my opinion, the most likely possibility is that we do get that bounce. We push for like the low 530s, but then, excuse me, but then whether it's Jerome Powell that pumps us, or if it happens to be CPI, we'll have to see about that. But even if we do pump like this, I would still be careful. I don't know when Trump is going to announce the tariffs. Even if we do get a big launch towards all-time highs, right? We have a possible inverse head and shoulder setup. We have to be careful because Donald Trump could announce the tariffs and that could change things for the market. So even if we do get a pump back up like this, we'll see if Trump causes us to get a rug pull right back down. It all depends on what he says. So you have to remember all these catalysts one at a time. For the Russell 2000, we're looking a little bit more bullish on the IWM. We have a gap to fill up here. If we don't lose 225, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 227. And if we lose 225, we're looking for a dump back down to 222. My gut tells me it might try to bounce for 227, so we'll see if we get a bounce. For now, that's what technicals are suggesting. But then we'll see if we get a rejection or not. I'll be watching that very closely. For ES, the same thing is going on. Now, there was a time we had a channel, so just keep this in mind. There was like a channel on ES where this thing was going back and forth between supply and demand like this, right? And then what happened was we got a break through the resistance after we got a bounce. So we're watching to see, are we about to do the same thing on ES? Are we about to break out of this channel like this? Are we about to see a breakout like this? If we break 61.25, that's going to likely be the case for us to do that. If not, if we get a rejection, then we could turn back down. So just to clear this out, to make this a little bit simple to understand, if we're about to get a break on the next leg up on ES and we get a good CPI, if the market pushes, 61.22 is to be expected. If we break that, we're looking for us to attempt all-time highs. If we reject, we're looking for a move to about 60.50. If that fails us, look for a dump back down to the low at the low 6,000s. Could go either way. But even if we do get a pump like this close to like 61.20, it doesn't even guarantee we're going to keep running, because if Trump comes out and announces those tariffs, we could still turn later on. So you want to watch everything one at a time and be very patient. Also know that when Trump announces the tariffs and he makes these big announcements, it's typically not in the morning. So CPI will come out first. And then what's going to happen is we have Powell's testimony, and then a couple of hours into the trading day, then Donald Trump typically makes those announcements about tariffs or something like that. So just keep that in mind. It usually takes some time. For NQ, we're at resistance right here at this blue trend line. If we're bullish, we want to break all the way up to 22,000 and above. That's the bullish case. If we get a good CPI and Powell pumps us, we're looking for that. If we're bearish, we end up losing supports over here at 21,690. We're looking for a dip back down for a rejection. Could go either way, but even if we get that pump, there could still be a rejection back down, because every time we hit 22,000, we have rejected, or almost every time. So it's a very tough resistance, and we'll see what Trump causes if he does make those announcements. So we'll see, just to be safe. With that being said, we have Bitcoin. It's in a range. Every time we hit 95,000, we bounce. When we hit 98,000, we reject. We're going back and forth right now. Might try to push for 96,800. For Nvda looks decent. It's in the middle. It's very indecisive right now. Look at the last 2 days. Chop, chop, chop. That's all it's doing, chopping back and forth. It's waiting for a big direction, waiting on Trump's tariffs, waiting for CPI and these catalysts. If we get a good CPI and we break past 136, I think we push up to 140 pretty easily. If we're bearish and we end up losing 128, we could be dipping back down to these lower levels. Even if we do get some kind of dip back down to like the mid 120s, we could still bounce back up. So it's still bullish nonetheless, whether we get a dip first and then bounce, or if we push. This depends on CPI, depends on Donald Trump, it depends on Jerome Powell. Even if Tesla gets some kind of bounce tomorrow, depending on CPI, it still looks bearish, guys. So just keep that in mind. It's currently in a free fall. There's no sign of a bounce yet. For Apple has supported 226 and resistance at 236. We're in a range. It looks like it has a double bottom, so this setup does look a bit more bullish for 238, but we'll see just to be safe. We'll be wanting to watch our levels and such. Now I'm going to go on a speed run, guys, because I am running out of time. I'm going to be very quick with the rest of these, so just bear with me. Netflix has to reclaim 110 or else it's favoring a move down to about the 980s. It is looking a bit more bearish. This may depend on CPI and factors, but technicals look a little bit weaker. MSTR is on a bit of a downtrend, making lower highs and lower lows continually. We're losing support right here at 325, so this is favoring that it might slowly get its way back down towards like 318. Celsius is looking a bit more bullish. If we break 22.38, we're looking for a bounce. Might try to test the 22.38 area or above, so I see potential in this. For Super Micro, we look more bullish. It's going to gap up tomorrow in the 40s, and we'll see if we can sustain these levels or not. The guidance was not the earnings were not the strongest, but their guidance was very strong for 2026. So it's doing a good job so far. It should try to push a bit, but then CPI may effectively get a move back down towards 136. If we don't hold 40, we're going to be dipping back down to like 137, 136. If we hold 140, we could push more, so we'll see just to be safe. For Palantir, we pumped quite a bit. We're going to likely cool off a little bit. Might retest like 110, and we'll see if we bounce or not, depending on CPI. Rivian's going to be testing 12.5. If that does not hold us, we have like a rejection forming, which could take us back down to about 12.5 as we remain in this range. We also have like an inverse head and shoulders, so it's a very, very mixed setup. We have to see if we bounce off this or not, depending on CPI. SoFi is on a bit of a downtrend in a falling wedge. We haven't broken out yet. So as of right now, it's bearish. It's technically dipping to like the 14s, low 14s. Until we get a breakout, we're waiting to see. Otherwise, it's still a bit more bearish. For AMD, we might be retesting 113.5, a little bit above for a small push. And we'll see if we reject or not. It does look like it wants to retest this resistance. This is previous support becoming resistance. Will we reject or do we bounce? We'll have to wait and see. For ARM, we're on a bit of a downtrend, may continue to downtrend towards 154 since we're losing 159. And we'll see if we get a breakout of this wedge or not. Depends on our big catalyst. For coin, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We're going to be watching to see if we could hold support, or if not, we could be dipping towards like 265. So please keep that in mind. For Amazon, we're looking for this resistance at 233. If that breaks, we're looking for 235 or above. If we lose 230, we're looking for a dip to 228. This looks bullish, though. It looks like it wants to go higher. This depends on CPI and those factors, but technicals do look pretty good. Meta looks bullish as long as we don't lose 711. We're favoring 725 or so. It's continuing to make higher highs and higher lows. Doing a great job so far. Microsoft looks like it wants to retest 413, might bounce a little bit. We'll see if CPI and Powell help that. Google looks in the middle and might try to retest 189, so we'll see how that goes. GameStop's in the middle right now and might retest 26 flats. We'll see if it bounces from there. AMC looks a bit more bullish, and then for DJT, looks a bit more bearish, might be dipping towards the 29s. The VIX is very flat right now. We'll see if we get a breakout or not. If we get back above the 16.6 area, it's very indecisive. The 10-year treasury yield, so the yields are waiting for CPI. So is the dollar. We're waiting for CPI. We're waiting for Trump's tariffs. We're going to have to see how things go. The market is very, very patient. So as a result, Tesla does look bearish despite the catalyst coming out for tomorrow. Even if it does pop a bit, it's going to likely continue to fall to fill that gap at 322. Then eventually the 310s will come if that fails us. And just know that we're going to take it one step at a time. First, CPI will come out. I'll talk about that in my video for tomorrow in the morning before market open. Then we have Jerome Powell's testimony. It might cause a little bit of volatility. And then we'll wait and see if Donald Trump says anything. If he does say something about the tariffs, I'll give you guys an announcement. I'll give you guys a very, very good video about that as soon as I see the news. Until then, I thank you all so much for listening. So please have a good rest of your day. I'll be back with another update in just less than a day from now before market open. Until then, I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Have a good night and peace out.